Good afternoon. Today is lesson 23 and it is parentheses. Nice big word for math. Parentheses and the associative property. Parentheses and the associative property. Now, as you're writing that, let me assure you that the name is a lot bigger and longer and more difficult than the actual property itself. Now, we've talked about the commutative property where you can change your place of your numbers. You can commute or move where those numbers are in addition and multiplication, and it doesn't matter. Order doesn't matter is the commutative property. Now we're going to be looking at a new property called the associative property. So today, lesson 23, parentheses and the associative property. Now, the first thing that you need to write down is just the principle that's going to be our guiding principle for this whole property, and that is parentheses show order of operations. Parentheses show the order of operations. So go ahead and put a little note for yourself. What is in parentheses do first? Let me get a nice thick writing for that word first so it sticks out. What is in parentheses you do first. Now, the associative property is going to be working with those parentheses, and the associative property of addition and multiplication is what we're going to be looking at today. So make sure you have that down. The principle is the parentheses show us the order of operation. And again, as a reminder, what is in the parentheses we will do first. So they separate our problem into parts. Now let's take a look at that, not just with words, but with numbers since it's math. Now let's take a look and we'll do a simple problem of 1 plus 2 plus 3. Now, the associative property, when you associate with someone, you hang out with them. So to show the associative property, I could group these two together, and I'm associating those two together. So you would actually do the problem by saying 1 plus 2 equals 3, and then you would do the rest of it, equals 6. Now again, if I were to write that same problem, 1 plus 2 plus 3, because of the associative property of addition, I can go ahead and associate two different numbers, or they can hang out together, and it's not going to change anything. Here, I would just first do the 2 plus 3 equals 5. And then I would add my 1. So I would say 1 plus 5 equals 6. So I'm going to always end up with the same answer because of the associative property of addition. And we'll take a look. The same thing's going to work in multiplication. I can group my numbers in any way, and I'm still going to end up with the same answer. That is the associative property of addition. Now let's take a look at the associative property of multiplication, which is the same thing. So let's do our two problems. We'll say 1 times 2 times 3, and let's write it again since we're going to have to do it anyway. 1 times 2 times 3. And then let's show the associative property of multiplication by first saying, let's group these two together, and then we'll group these two together. We'll associate them with each other. Now, if we were to actually go and do the problems, here I would say 1 times 2 equals 2 times 3 equals 6. And here I would say 2 times 3 equals 6 times 1 equals 6. Again, because of the associative property of multiplication, the order doesn't matter. So what you've seen there is the associative property of addition and multiplication. Now I want to wrap up today with just showing you that it may not always be all addition or all multiplication. You may sometimes have addition and subtraction or multiplication and addition. It doesn't matter, but you then are going to always look for your parentheses, and your parentheses will tell you what to do first. So if I said 6 times 5 plus 1. Well, I have shown you with my parentheses, and you would automatically go, oh, the parentheses, I have to do that first. And you would say to yourself, 5 plus 1 equals 6. That was the thing you had to do first. And then you'd multiply it by your 6. And 6 times 6 is 36. Now I want to show you that the associative property doesn't always work unless it's all addition or all multiplication, because let's change colors here so you can see it. If I were to say 6 times 5 with my parentheses plus 1 equals, well, what do I do first? 6 times 5. 6 times 5 is 30 plus 1 equals 31. Uh-oh. 31 as opposed to 36. But notice, I had multiplication and addition, and up here, multiplication and addition. They weren't all addition, they weren't all multiplication. So, always remember, go to those parentheses first. Do what's in the parentheses first, then you do the other things. And sometimes you may end up with like a comparison symbol between them. So you might see 6 times 5 plus 1, and then the sign for greater than, less than, or equal, the circle, 6 times 5 plus 1. Well, then when you do them both out, well, you'd realize that the first one is the bigger one, so you'd have greater than. So just be careful. Make sure you know if it's all addition or all multiplication, we have the associative property. You can group them any way you want. But as soon as you start mixing up your operations, like adding and multiplying, subtracting, dividing, multiplying and dividing, anytime you mix them up, you have to just do them in the order that the parentheses tell you first. That's all for today's lesson. We'll practice together in class tomorrow, and I hope you have a great evening.